Hey, I'm Robert Beal. I am the host of the Bealcast podcast, and you're about to watch an episode shot at Kinship Cafe. If you've ever wondered what my pastor must be like, well, you don't have to wonder anymore, because Jenny Wells, pastor of Central Presbyterian in Hyde Park, sits down with me for this episode. Hope you enjoy it. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow, and share. Hey, I'm Robert Beal, and you're watching an episode of the Bealcast here, shot at Kinship Cafe, and I am sitting here with one of my favorite people. I say that a lot though, because I have like a serious case of like recency bias. So pretty much whoever I'm talking to at that moment is one of my favorite people. But
Fair.
But you're my pastor. You're Jenny Wells.
That's me.
Right. Okay. So Jenny Wells. So like so you're a pastor. Where are you a pastor?
I'm the pastor at Central Presbyterian Church in
Okay.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
In Hyde Park.
In Hyde Park, yeah. So do you? So we've known each other for for 2 years.
2 years, just over 2 years.
Yeah. Do you think it's interesting that your first podcast with me is at a coffee shop?
Yeah, we met at a coffee shop.
Yeah. So how did that go down? What's your perception of that interaction?
This is a great story.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it has me in it, and that's how I feel about all my stories.
Well, so I was having coffee with our music director and organist in this coffee shop in the Northland.
Head Rush Roasters at Briarcliff.
Head Rush Roasters at Briarcliff. And I think partway through my conversation with them, you came in and set up in the corner and you were working. And I had kind of clocked you because of your tattoos.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, there's a guy in the corner who looks like a hipster.
Really?
And
Danny, did you think I was a hipster when you?
I
what the hell?
I don't think I've ever told my side of version of this story. So I noticed you were there.
Okay.
And then Cindy and Anne-Marie left, and I was kind of packing up my things, and you approached me and I think you said something like, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but did you say that your father was a pastor in Springfield, Missouri?" And
yeah.
which is not what I had been talking about, but you had caught bits and pieces of our conversation.
But I internalize everything to my story.
But I had mentioned Springfield, Springfield,
Yeah.
Illinois,
Yeah.
Which is where I used to live. And my grandfather was a pastor. And so I think I had been telling Cindy and Anne-Marie parts of my story and talking about that. And so you had caught the important bits and pieces of like kind of putting that together and figuring out that we had something in common.
Yeah, so it was 4th of July.
It was.
And so what I would do, this is when I was working at the bank where I was doing online lending, I would like on holidays like that, I would log in because most people are normal and they're doing stuff with their family and taking their day off. And I was like, oh yeah, it's grind time. And so a friend of mine had encouraged me to go to coffee shops. So I went to that coffee shop that day and I was sitting in the corner and I'm listening to music. And I think that between songs, I heard you say something like Springfield or whatever. And so, I turn the volume down and I start to kind of eavesdrop a little bit. And then I hear like some pastor. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to say something to her when it wraps up. And so when it wrapped up and I went over there and I was like, pastor's kid, Springfield, Missouri, or like, and you said, well, no, you corrected me. It was Illinois. But then you said like, I'm a pastor. Mm-hmm. And I was really struck by that. I mean, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 2023 in a metro.
Ready,
yeah.
I'm getting ready to start my new call at a church here in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you come and see us sometime?
So I remember, I grew up the son of a minister, right? I mean, that's how I'm in the Midwest. And I remember having a conversation with you. I think we maybe exchanged like on Instagram or something like that in some way. And I didn't think of you in terms of a pastor.
Right.
I thought, well, that's a cool chick. She's moving to Kansas. She's about to move to Kansas City from Oklahoma. I'll just stay in touch with her. She's in need of a friend. That was like kind of like how I like framed it. And I think maybe then you met my wife, and I was like, oh man, because she had just moved here, and I was like, oh, that can be a friend for my wife. They like gardening or baking or gluten-free stuff. I can't remember what there was common.
A number of things.
Yeah. And so I didn't really think of you in terms of like a minister. Like that wasn't a factor. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, you had like a nose ring, you had tattoos, that's like challenges, my Assemblies of God Protestant like background in some way, but that's okay. I have colorful rings. And so I didn't think about it in terms of the church, but as we got closer and, you were having what do you call it when you preach your first sermon?
What do you mean?
Like, were you seated? Are you coronated? It's not a coronation.
No. So when in the PCUSA, when a pastor starts a new call, they have an installation service.
That's right. Whatever it was. So you were going to have your installation service, which doesn't sound at all like what I remember it as being, and so I didn't have anything to do. I hadn't been in church in a while, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to be supportive. She's going to love the fact that I'm there, And so I get there, and it had been a while since I'd been to a church. And it was just this lovely morning that I was not anticipating having. I have been mostly very cynical when it comes to like questions of faith, or at the time I was very cynical when it came to questions of faith. All the basic stuff that we can talk about, like people saying, hey, I'm a Christian, and then just doing and voting and all the stuff that is in direct so I'm sort of like, I'm out, like religion, whatever, I'm out. But I could never just be like, I'm 100% like atheist, right? There's always that piece. But I remember I went to that sermon, and I can't even remember what the sermon was about, but it was about something like so fundamental. Do you remember what your sermon was about?
No.
You seriously don't remember? Like, that's not a big deal.
Do you know how many sermons I preach?
I know, but I would remember.
Here's the thing. Most preachers have one sermon that they preach all the time in a different way.
Okay.
And what I tend to come back to over and over and over again is Jesus tells us to love God and love our neighbor. And fundamentally, that
sounds like some bullshit.
What following Jesus is about.
Seriously? It's that simple?
Love your neighbor, man.
Yeah, and so I think that, I think there was something in the conversation, in that sermon that day. The big thing that strikes me is gratitude. And so almost certainly there was something in that sermon that you said about gratitude, and just the rest of the day, it sort of stuck with me. And I was in a good mood, and it was just, I don't know, I just remember being like, this is so interesting. So Jessica gets off work, and I'm telling her, I went to church, and she's sort of like, really, And and so ultimately I joined the church. I became a part of the church. I don't attend as regularly as maybe I used to have, but yeah, so how has it been? So you've been there for 2 years now. How do you go from like Illinois to being a pastor? Like, tell me what happened.
You want me to back way up?
I guess maybe I could. There's probably a more eloquent way for me to frame that question, but we've already started. So yeah.
So
how'd you? So yeah. So
how did I become
journey?
A pastor?
Yeah. How does a woman in this day and age, who's as cool as you,
oh thanks,
decide I'm going to be a pastor?
I felt a call to ministry.
Like you felt a real call.
Like throughout my entire life, really, and not just a call, but a series of moments, interactions, encounters with people who have recognized my gifts and pointed them out to me and nudged me in that direction throughout my life.
What are those gifts?
I'm a good listener.
That's, we go to lunch, and I'm always like,
you're just talk.
Jessica's like, how's Jenny doing? I have no idea.
But I know how Robert is.
Yeah. I'm not proud of that, but yeah.
No, it's good. When I was really early in church work for me, like early ministry, before I had even decided to go to seminary, I was working as a Christian educator for a Presbyterian church in Illinois. And one of the gifts that the pastor there had seen in me and invited me to actually apply for that job was that I was really good working with children and youth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I haven't pursued work with children and youth.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think I'm not good at it, but my call has led me in a different direction.
Yeah. Well, we're all like, I mean, we're all just children.
True.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you know, we're all, I'm still that same kid, you know, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I actually sort of think when people if people would realize that, you know, and have that perspective about themselves, things make a lot more sense, and they can kind of handle things differently. But okay, so and so then you went in, you felt the call thing to me
Yeah.
is so fascinating.
So when I was like I mentioned, my grandfather was a pastor, and my mom has told me that when I was really little, and like so young that I don't remember saying this, but she tells me that I said, I'm going to be pastor like Papa when I grow up. Now, I don't remember saying that, but surely there was something within me, right?
Yeah, but it makes sense that a
yeah.
kid would say something about a role model. I mean,
Yeah.
so your grandfather's very close. You were very close to your grandfather?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that side of my family.
Okay.
And then just, like I said, all of these moments throughout my life,
Mhm.
right? Like I grew up going to church. My sister and I were very involved with our youth group growing up. I was ordained as a deacon when I was in high school. When I went to college, I was invited to serve as a student chaplain on campus. I served as a chaplain in my sorority for a year. And then I didn't really pursue ministry, like, after undergrad. I
Yeah.
was a theater major.
Right.
And,
Okay.
like, pictured myself stage managing some
Yeah.
Broadway show.
Yeah.
Right? And then, things happen, and
How much is like a Sunday morning, like managing, like being at theater?
it's
like,
a production.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, my experience in stage management and like managing people really comes in handy when it comes to Sunday, and not just Sunday mornings, but
Yeah.
special services throughout the year and other events that we have.
So our services are, I mean, I'm sure they're more complicated in terms of like putting them together as eyewitness, but from my experience at a church, they're pretty simple. And I don't mean simple like derogatory. I mean, they're pretty simple.
Yeah.
And so when you look at, say, some mega church with somebody like coming down on the rafters, do you think in terms of like your theology and your faith, or do you think, man, I'm just glad I don't have to manage all that production?
Part of me is glad I don't have to manage all that production, but even in a big mega church that is putting on a much bigger production on a Sunday morning, I'm sure it is all scripted out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I script out our service
Yeah.
quite a bit.
There's
before
a-
Sunday.
I
I
feel-
think there are two parts of the service that I say from memory.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. We can get nervous a couple times. Somebody with the pyrotechnics of lighting an actual candle, but there's a lot less explosions at our church than maybe
Right.
some of these other
Right.
churches, right?
Can I tell you a story about a candle?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Christmas Eve,
Okay.
we always do a candlelight service.
Yeah.
And everyone gets their little candle with their little piece of paper to keep the wax from dripping, right?
Yeah.
Well, and we light the Advent wreath. Well, last Christmas Eve, we were all lighting candles, and someone lit a candle that wasn't at the front, that wasn't part of the Advent wreath, wasn't part of
They just brought their own
anything
like
else. No,
candle
it was
from-
a candle that's usually in the sanctuary,
Okay.
but we weren't using it for the service. It was on a table over to the side. Well, somebody lit it, and none of the worship leaders knew that it had been lit. So I go in the next day, on Christmas Day, to drop some things off because I was going to be going out of town. I wasn't going to be there
Yeah.
the Sunday after Christmas. And I go into the sanctuary, and this candle's still burning.
Holy cow! So like you just like left, like do you not shut the lights off?
And the side of it had like melted down, like, and it was on a little tray, like, so it wasn't like overheating anything underneath it or anything, and it hadn't burned down that low, but the panic
I'm
that
sure.
I felt when I opened the door
I'm sure.
and saw this candle burning still the next day, like in the afternoon, like it wasn't even in the morning.
So I have a similar. So last time we shot at Blip, so I got home that night. Jessica was out of town, and parked in the driveway, and I left the gear in the car. I don't know why. Later that evening, I had to get something out of the car. I went out, got the thing out of the car, shut the garage, went to bed, got up the next morning, left for work, and my hatch, I had left the hatch wide open. Anybody could just walk by and just like take it. So I understand that fear. So, okay. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you was I had a conversation with Danny, and my neighbor is Theo Davis. He's an artist. He is also Corgi as well. And we had conversations here recently about Gen Z, which neither of us are. I mean, Danny's over there, but I don't think he's mic'd. Gen Z, there is a noticeable like movement in the direction of church, faith, religion in Gen Z.
And more men than women.
Yeah, and so I wanted to I think that's interesting because, for me as 50, Gen X, like, everything that has happened in my life is just basically disproving it's just very difficult to adhere to the beliefs that like I was brought up in, like all very cynical. The world that I was promised has just not been the world that like that has delivered, right? And to me, Gen Z, with they have so much technology, they have so much stuff. They've been brought up in a world where anything you can create anything, and to me that is like kind of antithetical to being brought into faith. Like I would think they'd be all the most cynical people, but that's just that's not what like the research and everything that's going on right now is telling us, right? Well,
but at the same time, you can be cynical and still be a person of faith.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've become that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, so from what are your thoughts on this?
On Gen Z, like.
So why do you think this is a thing?
Well, the thing that floats to the top in a lot of the research that's been done around this very recently is that Gen Z are seeking connection, and they're seeking community. And as someone who, as an adult, has moved to a new place by myself, I can understand the desire to find a community of people who will become my people.
Yeah.
Right? And support me in my new thing, in my new place,
right?
And just in life, right?
So you think it's sorry?
Go ahead.
So I mean, the community piece of it makes a lot of sense to me. I look at my own boys and other kids, and I see how, especially men, when we talk about this, young boys, can be so isolated to their devices. They live their world in their bedroom. I'm making a lot of assumptions here, stereotypes, but online, video gaming, all of that, all of those things are done in your space as an individual, as opposed to being like out in the community.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that you can also talk about like the community within that. You can have your buddies and your gamers and that type of stuff, but
right. It's not the same as having a human connection.
Right.
And I think, one of the other things that research shows, and the trend of Gen Z seeking community in churches, is not in mainline Protestant churches, right? It is mega churches that are attractive to a lot of that generation. I'm not saying that's to everybody, right?
So you're saying that they are that the show, like those churches, and I'm not making an assessment as far as like faith and belief or anything like that, but that type of production, that's what you're finding they're being drawn to?
A lot of people, yes. And I think that is also hurting the mainline Protestant denomination churches, because then they think that we need to put on a big production, we need to have a contemporary worship service because that's what people are desiring, but it's not. It's the connection piece. Because one of the things that'll, like, take Life Church, for example, they're really good at small group ministry.
Uh-huh.
Like, that is what they do. Like, yes, people come to worship during the week, but then they're
but it's the
part
groups
of a small group that is part of their community.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, when a PCUSA or a UMC or an ELCA congregation is looking at those trends and seeing all the young people are going over there because they have a praise band.
Yeah. But
that's not the primary thing that is drawing people to church.
Okay.
Right?
I mean, so you're talking about, so your denomination, we're Presbyterian and PCUSA,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And so, I mean, one of the things I find fascinating about Christianity and organized religion is just the fact that you have these denominations.
Mm-hmm.
You have these denominations, and you're all basically reading the same text, and your belief is that this is God's word. It's God's word. It's the same text. So then, how are there all these denominations? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that, I mean, I have always struggled with this. And again, I was brought up Assemblies of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I started going to dances and decided Baptist works, you know, then I was Catholic so I could drink. And then I was just like this dude, right? But like, I think that's really the idea of denominations is fascinating to me. Like, how do you end up in PCUSA? Did you just grow up that way? Did you make a decision to be in it? Like,
I was raised Presbyterian.
okay.
I had a colleague like about a year ago who used the term prenatal Presbyterian.
Okay.
Like, that's kind of how I've started describing myself, because my mom was also raised Presbyterian.
That's fair.
My grandfather was
fair.
Presbyterian minister.
Yeah.
So that's, and I've just, you know, this is where I've stayed. It has been home for me.
I mean, have you ever checked out any other denomination? Like, I can remember there was a girl in junior high that I had a crush on, and she was Methodist. And I remember my mom being like, well, listen, Methodists are good people, but...
You know, when I was in college, there was a group, they were called the Church Hoppers.
Uh-huh.
And so it was just a group that would go to a different church every Sunday to check them out.
So
I've visited the worship services of other denominations. My grandmother on my dad's side of the family was Catholic.
Okay.
So I've spent some time in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Not for me, but, you know, we would go to worship with her when we would visit. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that the church hopping idea, I sort of kind of like that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had some people I've got to know, some ministers, other denominations that have invited me. I've gone to church, you know, and I do think it is interesting because there are some fundamentals, right? I think a church is about the only place outside of like some very specific podcasts where you're going to get like intense focus on gratitude. Mm-hmm. You know, you may disagree with the politics of the church and all that type of stuff, but at some point they're going to talk about gratitude, and everybody's going to kind of understand like what you're talking about, and that was probably the overall theme that I got from going to church, you know, at Central Presbyterian, and just in you know, so, but I think that the denomination thing, I'm just so fascinated by the fact that there's just denomination after denomination after denomination, because it sort of inherently implies that like maybe it's not the word of God. Like, how can you know?
It's different
sort
interpretations of the Word of God,
right? And you can interpret anything to be anything.
But also, like, we don't worship the Bible, right? Like, the Bible was not written by God. Like, it's the Word of God, but it was written by men.
Yeah. So what do you worship?
We worship God.
And so what is worshiping God? I mean, how do you define worship? What is your worship experience?
That's a hard question to answer, because worship for me as the worship leader is going to be different than your experience of worship as someone who is coming to hear an interpretation of the word and be fed spiritually.
I, grew up in a Assemblies of God church. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I mean, I was getting saved 3 times a week. Oftentimes I was like walking down to the front. I mean, there was a little bit of speaking in tongues. It was an experience, and I have a couple close friends of mine from that period of time, like junior high, that I've known for a long time. And we've had conversations about how we're like, did you feel anything? And we're like, I don't know that. I mean, I knew Mary was cute and she's down there doing this, and like, I'm going to go down there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 15, 14-year-old like me. And so, that's another thing that I'm sort of fascinated by, the idea of worship, because...
Well, so then I guess my question then to you would be, then what makes you feel something?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things.
Because, we're talking about worship in the context of church and being part of a faith community that comes together for worship, typically on a Sunday morning, right? But I don't think that is the only way that we have to define what worship is.
Yeah, I think that if you look at it, just the act of being in that community around those people, when I say those people, I mean around the people in our congregation, I can see how that could be worship. For me, I try to explain this to my father. The most I've presence in the divine or the thing spiritually, the things that have moved me the most. If I'm out in nature, epic scale of mountains and things like that, you just can't do anything but be awe-inspired. And then when I'm dancing, and I think I've told you this before, it's a weird thing, and so I don't know that I've ever felt any kind of like spiritual movement, really, that I could say, okay, something's happening here, other than those situations. So, but okay, so back to kind of like, because we're kind of all over the place here. So, the larger churches with, okay, how old are you?
36.
Okay. All right. So in high school, I'm 50. In high school, you're listening to Warrant, you're listening to Guns N' Roses, you're listening to all that heavy metal. Like, that was a thing, right, when high school started.
For
hair
you.
bands. Yes, it's a generational thing. Hair bands, right? Like, it was just ridiculous. It was like a kind of a parody of itself. And then it became, like grunge came out, and it all deconstructed it, and then it was like sort of like lo-fi. And I wonder, like, are we like post-hairband era megachurch? Like, are we getting, is that going to happen? Is that going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and consume? Or is it going to be like other things where people sort of like chase like vintage, retro, or maybe more authentic? Because now seems like a good time for that transition to start to happen.
Well, and there is this kind of trend of vintage retro right now too, right? Like the things of the past are making a kind of comeback. People are shopping at thrift stores more. And those sorts of things. So maybe it's a both and.
I mean, the production itself, but we talk about how people are wanting like the personal connection. Do you know what I mean? Like, is there going to come a point where people realize this production is just that, it's production?
Oh, could be.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, well, I don't expect you to answer that, but I mean.
Well, and I hope that churches, and not just the church that I serve, but churches of every denomination and worship style, or however you want to define them, are finding ways to build community that are not just come to worship on Sunday and then stay for a coffee hour, right? Like, we're trying to incorporate other opportunities for people to connect in an authentic way.
So what type of ways can you connect authentically at Central Presbyterian?
So one of my favorite things that we do is called Holy Happy Hour.
Yeah.
And
It's one of my favorite things too. It's probably my best attended, to be honest with you.
Like we were doing this once a month, but we've backed it off and we're doing it quarterly now.
Okay.
And we bounce around to different breweries and restaurants in the Kansas City metro and just get together and have a beer or have some appetizers and just be together.
Yeah. Outside of the church.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there something else big coming up like in October that we want to talk about?
There is another big thing coming up.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
We're gearing up for our second, I guess I can say annual because we want it to become a yearly thing.
Yeah.
Second annual Guns to Gardens Safe Disposal event on Saturday, October 25th.
Okay.
And we actually have our first volunteer training this evening. So like this will be beyond when this podcast airs, but
which I won't be at that training tonight. But go ahead.
Fair. We have 2 other trainings coming up.
Okay.
The first week of October.
I'll make you think I might be at one of those.
Thanks.
Okay.
But what Guns to Gardens is, for people who haven't heard of this, is we offer an opportunity for people to come and safely and anonymously dispose of their unwanted firearms that they have in their home. So they bring those and they are inspected and cleared of any ammunition, and then we put them right into a chop saw and cut them into pieces.
Right.
And then we're partnering. Last year we partnered with a blacksmith. This year we have more blacksmiths that we're working with and some other artists who are going to take the dismantled pieces and turn them into art.
I mean, it sounds lovely. It sounds like a great cause.
Yeah.
All right. So as we wrap up here, I got a couple questions for you. The first one, and this has sort of just become a standard on the Bealcast. What's better, Kansas City barbecue or street tacos?
Barbecue tacos? Can
I? I mean, you can do whatever you want to. I mean, it's an answer. I've planted my flag with the street tacos, but whatever. You can stay neutral if you're thinking about the congregation.
Well, so everybody at Central knows that I'm a fan of Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have to plant my flag with street tacos because if we have a meeting on Tuesday night and we're starting to run late, I tell everybody,
guys,
you're keeping me from taco night.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so last question here, and I think that you're the perfect person to ask this question. I mean, do you think the Chiefs are going to be able to win a Super Bowl this year?
When I got dressed this morning, I did not even occur to me that I was wearing Chiefs
Don't
colors
avoid the question. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I mean, they lost on Sunday.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me just back. I'll let you just. Do you feel like you're spending enough time in prayer on the behalf of the Chiefs?
Absolutely not.
Okay, excellent. All right. Hey, my name's Robert Beal. You've just watched an episode of the Bealcast with my pastor,
Jenny Wells.
Jenny Wells at Central Presbyterian. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're done.